desires are aligned with your plans, for they have heard the voice of justice crying out in the streets and have not turned a deaf ear to his voice. Thank you for candidates willing to judge righteously, not according to appearance or respect of persons, but according to biblical and moral values. Tonight, we ask that you guide the panelists and moderators. Fill each candidate with wisdom that's needed to express what you have placed in their hearts. May we leave this venue with great clarity of mind and purpose. Finally, may special blessings rest upon the organizers of this event and the members of Delta Sigma Theta. Let all that is said and done in this forum bring you great glory and honor. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much, Sarah Tanya Jackson, for that prayer. Next, we will hear from Sarah Doris Brown. She serves as our Southwest Region Social Action Coordinator. Sarah Doris.
Thank you, Dr. Merrick, and also Ms. Williams. Good evening. On behalf of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, Alpha Tau, Baker Zachary alumni, Baton Rouge Delta alumni, and Baton Rouge Sigma alumni chapters, we welcome you to meet the candidates, a judicial forum for city court and family court seats. You will also receive an overview of the constitutional amendments that are on the ballot. This election is critically important as we combat the triple pandemic of COVID-19, racial injustice, and economic injustice, as well as the many natural disasters we are recovering from. Delta's voice is needed now more than ever. It is imperative that we listen carefully as each candidate share their story, because stories matter. The storyteller, the timing, the word choice, the form the story takes, because stories shape how we see the world and how we envision our role in shaping it. The constitutional amendments are equally as important and can impact our communities. Tonight, we reaffirm the mission and vision of our sorority, continuing the legacy of our 22 founders of social activism is imperative to the success of this country, state, and city. Over the last 108 years, Delta Sigma Theta has stood as one of the nation's most engaged service organizations of extraordinary women who use their influence towards the enactment of laws to shape our country, lift our communities, and create equal opportunity. Thank you, Soros and the Greater Baton Rouge community for your participation in this political forum and for using the power in your voice. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Sorrel Brown. We will now have an overview of the constitutional amendments by Dr. Albert Samuels, a Jewel L. Prestige Kellogg Professor of Political Science and the Chair of the Political Science Department and History Department at the Southern University Agricultural and Mechanical College.
Thank you very much, Ms. Williams. It's good to see you this evening. And I want to thank my good friend Tracy Woods, who keeps inviting me to these things. It's good to be invited. I want to also again express my appreciation to the ladies of the Delta Sigma Theta for their continuing commitment to social action and to political awareness. And so, and it's for these reasons that we keep meeting. And I thank you for this. Thank you for this invitation. My task tonight is to discuss the constitutional amendments that are going to be on the ballot for November the 13th. This time around, there are 4 constitutional amendments, which is good because sometimes we have significantly more than that. So what I'm going to try to do is to go through each one of these, say a little bit about them, and to kind of say something about some of the arguments that have been for them, some of the arguments that are against them. I apologize. My intention was to do a nice little PowerPoint for you, have all the pretty pictures and stuff like this, but we had some time constraints today, so I'm just going to just talk through them. And so bear with me in that. I want to start first of all with Amendment 1. Amendment. I'm just going to read it as it's probably going to appear on the ballot. Amendment 1 asked the question: do you support an amendment to authorize the legislature to provide for the streamlined electronic filing, electronic remittance, and the collection of sales and use taxes levied within the state by the state and local streamlined sales and use tax commission, and to provide for the funding, duties, and responsibilities of the commission? Just very simply, Amendment 1 seeks to streamline the process of sales tax collection within Louisiana. The current situation in our state. Currently, Louisiana is a state that is noted for having some of the highest sales taxes in the country. We have a state sales tax of about 4.45%. And in addition to that, your local municipalities also have sales tax that can vary depending on which locality that you live in. So collectively, the state and local sales taxes together give us one of the highest sales tax rates in the state. And however, we have a sort of a convoluted process of how it's collected. The state, through the Department of Revenue, collects the state sales tax, and they also collect sales taxes from from sales over the internet. However, each local government collects their own taxes, and it may be through the sheriff's office, it may be through the school board, or sometimes a combination of all of these things. And so one of the things that business groups have complained about for years is that this convoluted system makes it hard for them to kind of comply, with the law to pay the sales taxes, and particularly if you have a business that is in that operates in more than one parish, because East Baton Rouge Parish may tax one way, Calcasieu another, Allen Parish another way, and so what this amendment would do essentially is to create essentially one statewide agency that would be responsible for collecting all of the sales taxes throughout the state, and then they would have the responsibility of in the case of the local taxes, they would basically remit back to the local jurisdictions the tax that applies to, say, Vermilion Parish, or the tax that applies to Punkapi, or what have you. And the argument here is that will simplify things. Also, to the fact that a lot of things are done through e-filing, that administratively that would be a little easy to do. And so, for those who argue for this particular change, their argument is that this change would centralize the authority for tax collections, that it would make it easier for companies to actually comply the law, that it would reduce a lot of the red tape, and then it would improve Louisiana right now has a reputation of being a place that's unfriendly for business to operate, and so the complexities. The argument is that some of the complexities of our tax code in many ways make Louisiana, as we want to say, has a very unfavorable business climate. And so this will simplify matters for them. So that's essentially the argument for this amendment. The argument against it is that doing this would take a lot of the control away from local governments. One of the reasons that a lot of local governments have resisted this tax change is that Louisiana, unlike many other states, Louisiana has a homestead exemption, and because of the homestead exemption, local governments are limited in how much they can assess people in terms for property taxes, because the first $75,000 on the value of a home is exempt from property taxes. And so Louisiana local governments draw significantly less money from property tax revenue than you have in other states. So that makes Louisiana's local governments much more dependent on local sales tax revenue, which is also, and because they rely on it more, they've been a lot more resistance to changes to that. And so that is one. And so the argument is that if we do this will take a lot of control away from local governments. And the idea is that local governments, know better about their communities than some state entity. So that's basically the argument, against making this change. Okay. Before I begin, are there any specific questions about Amendment 1?
Dr. Samuels, we'll hold the questions to the end if you don't mind on all of the amendments.
Okay. So that's okay. No problem. So that's Amendment number 1. Amendment 2. Again, I'll read from this. Amendment 2 says, do you support an amendment to lower the maximum allowable rate of individual income tax and to authorize the legislature to provide by law for a deduction for federal income tax paid? Okay, let me get, basically Amendment 2 is a proposal to essentially lower tax rates within the state of Louisiana. This would affect both personal income taxes essentially, and also corporate income tax. But in exchange for doing this, it also would eliminate. It proposes to authorize the elimination of the ability of individual taxpayers in Louisiana to deduct their federal income tax from their state returns. So in addition to a lower, in exchange for lowering the overall rates, the ability for people to deduct their federal income tax, that exemption will be taken away. So just to briefly describe what the current situation is. Currently in Louisiana, the maximum allowable tax rate, especially for individual taxpayers, right now is about 6%. 6%. That's for incomes of $50,000 or more. As far as the state income tax goes, that's actually one of the highest rates in the country, and certainly one of the highest within the southeast region. In addition to that, Louisiana is one of only 2 states that allows its individual taxpayers to actually fully deduct on their state income taxes whatever they have paid in their federal income tax. tax. And so one of the consequences of that is that oftentimes state and federal tax policies are working at cross purposes. So, for example, when federal, so whenever people's federal taxes increase, that means that people can deduct a higher amount on their state income tax because of that, and state revenue actually goes down. State tax revenue goes down, and always it's always the vice versa. So when the federal government actually cuts taxes, because people will have paid less tax, they will actually have less federal income tax that they can deduct. So their state taxes will go up. So it will go up. Oftentimes, because of these fluctuations, that also creates some unpredictability for the state budget. And so what this proposal would do is that, first of all, it would reduce some of the tax rates, but also what it would do is that it would eliminate the ability of individual taxpayers to deduct their federal income tax. Now that there have been a number of analyses of this, and from independent analysts, and they sort of concluded that for the average taxpayer would probably not see a whole lot of change in their actual tax bill as a result of this. And so those people who are for this argue that this plan, this is a simpler, a much more fair system. System that on one hand that it lower that by lowering rates and reducing the exemptions, this complies with one of the recommendations that many people have been suggesting for years that Louisiana should do to its tax system. They also argue that the elimination of the ability of people to deduct their federal income tax is a benefit that disproportionately benefits those at the top. In other words, so the more money you make, the more taxes you pay, the more you can deduct. And with the tax law change that happened in 2017 under President Trump, in addition to that, one of the things that happened with that tax bill is that in addition to the federal income tax pay, people are also able to deduct any amount that they itemized. However, for some of us, the new tax law actually doubled the size of the standard deduction. So it made it look like you were getting something because they doubled the standard deduction, but actually by doing so, they eliminated a lot of the itemized deductions that some people were taking. So it didn't make, for a lot of people like me, it didn't make sense to itemize anymore because the standard deduction was a lot bigger. Well, a lot of middle class people end up actually paying more in taxes. So those changes disproportionately benefited those at the very top of the income scale. And so by the changes that are proposed here, the argument here is that this makes the system a little fairer because it actually eliminates a benefit that disproportionately benefits those at the top of the income scale. That's the rationale, for that. That's sort of the rationale for Amendment 2. Amendment 3 is a little more straightforward and forward. Amendment 3 asks, do you support an amendment to allow levy districts created after January the 1st, 2006 and before October 9th, 2021, which is when the election was originally scheduled, whose electors approved the amendment to levy an annual tax not to exceed 5 mils for the purpose of constructing and maintaining levees, levee damage, flood protections, and hurricane and flood protections. As anybody who lives in Louisiana knows, that we're a state that always has a problem with a lot of flooding. And we've had levee districts, since we have levee districts since the 1800s. And traditionally, levee districts have been empowered to enact a property mill not exceeding 5 5 mils to kind of maintain construct levees and sort of to maintain them. That's traditionally a power that levee districts had, and they've been able to do that basically with a simple majority vote. In 2006, there was a change in the law that said that basically levee districts were created after that. In order for them to raise revenue, they had to actually get a vote from the people within that district. So the districts created after that could not independently just simply levy the 5 mil. They had to actually get the vote of the people. Now, in addition to levy boards can, even the older levy boards, they can propose additional assessments to the voters in their districts. However, they can raise the 5 mil on their own authority. And so what this amendment would do was simply give the newer boards the ability to do what their predecessors have always done. This amendment will actually only affect directly only about 8 districts throughout the state. I looked at some of them. Actually, none of those are actually the Baton Rouge area. But one of the quirks of our Constitution system a lot of times is that we have a tendency to put things on the ballot that require that may only affect 1 or 2, a handful of jurisdictions, but the entire state has a vote on it. And so, in the jurisdictions that this applies to, essentially this measure would have to, first of all, it would have to pass statewide, and it also would have to pass within the particular district that would be directly affected by it. So again, Amendment 3 basically, essentially is attempting to give taxing authority to the new levy boards that were created after January the 1st, 2006, right after Hurricane Katrina, and that will allow them to act on their own authority a property mill of not exceeding 5 mils. Without having to go to a vote of the people first to do it. Okay, so that's amendment 3. And then finally, Amendment 4. Amendment 4 actually deals with the ability of the state to respond to a fiscal crisis. So Amendment 4 says, do you support an amendment to increase the amount of allowable deficit reductions to statutory dedications and constitutionally protected funds from 5% to 10%? As things stand right now in Louisiana, and we look at our state budget, we have large parts of our budget where there are funds set aside for certain purposes that are constitutionally protected, or they are statutorily dedicated. It means these dollars can only be used for certain purposes. And when there is a budget crisis or a shortfall, lawmakers can only cut dedicated funds no more than 5%. And so what that tends to do is that in a fiscal crisis, and if there's a serious fiscal crisis, what happens is the legislature does not have the flexibility to distribute the cuts evenly throughout the state budget. And so that means that the areas of the budget that are not protected suffer a disproportionate amount of those cuts. And the two biggest ticket items among the unprotected areas turn out to be higher education and also health and hospitals. And so we saw this particularly during the 2000 teens, following the Great Recession, when we had when basically the bottom fell out of the economy, and higher education in St. Louisiana suffered some severe budget cuts as a result of that. Health hospitals got punished as well, and so but this is a structural problem in our state budget. And so what this proposal would do is that it would, that in the event of a fiscal crisis, that it would increase the amount that could be taken from statutorily dedicated funds from 5% to 10%. And so the argument here is that this would give legislatures more flexibility to deal with deficits, and that you could that cuts could be more evenly distributed throughout state government. It happens. The opposition to this would be that the whole point of dedications is that it's because some programs are special importance and that they deserve to be protected. The opponents would argue that the 5% matter is already sufficient, and that if we expand that flexibility, that it would encourage legislators to be fiscally irresponsible. So again, those are the constitutional amendments 1 through 4.
Thank you, Dr. Samuels. No, we appreciate you going through those amendments very thoroughly for us. We're a little bit behind our schedule, actually. So if there are any questions as it relates to the amendments, we would ask that you put those in the chat box or the Q&A link, and we will try to get to those before we close out this evening. And those are questions on the amendments. And Dr. Samuels, if you wouldn't mind also putting your contact information in the chat box such that we can have attendees reach out to you for more information on those amendments. And again, thank you for that. And I know Ms. Williams, my co-moderator this evening, is one of your students, I believe. So she's gotten a second lecture this evening.
Shout out to her. And also quickly, one thing I would also recommend, because whenever I have questions about constitutional amendments, I always go to the Public Affairs Research Council. The nonpartisan source is the most reliable nonpartisan source for information regarding the constitutional amendments. So anybody who wants to go to their source is PAR Louisiana, one word, parlouisiana.org.
Yes.
Just click on the link to constitutional amendments. To give you an idea of why this is a good resource. A couple of these specific amendments, especially 1 and 2, actually represent policies that they have advocated for years. However, in their explanation, they still present both positions. So you go to them, they'll give you the information, they'll give you the context, and but they will explain the arguments for and against, but they don't tell you how to vote.
That's correct. And thank you, Ms. Ernice. You put the information to PAR Louisiana in the chat box, so those you can follow up. Thank you again, Dr. Samuels, for being with us this evening. We want to talk about another item that's going to be on the ballot for those of you who are in the East Baton Rouge Parish voting area, and that is going to be our CATS proposition that is on the ballot for Capital Area Transit. And joining us this evening is Ms. Pearline Thomas. She serves as Chief Administrative Officer with CATS, and we welcome her to come in and share with us just some quick details about that particular item on the ballot. Ms. Thomas?
Yeah, good evening. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be here and to talk about the agency and some of the great things we're doing. And yes, as you mentioned, that we have a millage renewal on the ballot November 13th. This is not a new tax. It's a renewal of the current 10.6 mills in the city of Baker and the city of Baton Rouge. One of the things that makes today very interesting is this weather phenomenon that we're dealing with. It's been so beautiful all of October, and then today dealing with the storms. Well, CATS is a partner with GOSEP and MOSEP, that's the Governor's Office of Homeland Security and the Mayor's Office of Homeland Security. So we've been activated to respond to that. It's significant when we're talking about the millage renewal because in 2016, during the flood, we rescued 6,000 people from the flooded areas and continued to transport essential workers during the pandemic. At no cost. We eliminated our fares to allow people to utilize the system to get to work with some of the hardships that people were suffering through the pandemic. With the millage renewal, right now, I want to explain that as part of our educational campaign around the millage, that 58% of our operating budget comes from the local funds, which is a part of the millage renewal. And we did a survey recently, and 91% of our riders, CATS is their only mode of transportation. And 75% of our riders use the system more than 5 times a week. So that's people using the system to get to work, to get to critical appointments like medical appointments, and to get to businesses, to do their shopping and to take care of their family needs. So let's see. So we have done a number of things since 2012 when the millage was first approved, and we've reduced our wait time. In 2012, our wait time was 75 minutes. We've reduced it down to 30 minutes. And with our bus rapid transit system that's going to be coming online from the Plank-Nicholson corridor down to LSU and downtown, during peak hours, the wait time will be 15 minutes. So we're looking forward to some great things that we're going to be able to do. We have 177 shelters, and we're right now getting ready to do either 100 refurbished or new shelters throughout our transportation area. Our board just approved at our last meeting a micro transit program that's going to be in northern Baton Rouge in the city of Baker. That's going to allow folks, right now we're only covering, we have one route in Baker, but this will allow people in Baker to utilize that service to go all over Baker and help us to gather the information to expand our service there. You made me a little nervous when you said you guys are running behind time, so I'm trying to get it all out. And but I don't know if you guys have any questions, or I can talk some more about some of the things that we support. Supporting 225,000 jobs, and what this millage renewal will do with the economic impact moving forward, how the local funding allows us, the agency, to levy those local funds to attract more federal funding, and what that means for an economic impact that an economist said we could look at a $1.6 billion economic impact over 10 years with the federal funding that we could attract, and to really make CATS the 21st century transit agency, to be a part of Baton Rouge becoming that 21st century city that we all keep talking about. So I can go, but I want to make sure that, okay. So We also have a paratransit service. So our paratransit service is a service that a number of our seniors take and a number of people take to go to medical appointments. And paratransit was really critical during the pandemic because we received phone calls from like Zachary and places where we don't have fixed route. Fixed routes are the service that you see on the buses that you see on the street. That's our fixed route service. The paratransit service are the much smaller buses. But it was very disheartening to have to tell people in Zachary that we couldn't take them to life-saving medical treatment like dialysis and chemo because we didn't have fixed route service there. That's one of the requirements of the federal government, that where we have fixed route, where we have paratransit, in order to have paratransit, we have to have a fixed route service there. So if CATS was to go away, then that paratransit service would go away. The getting people to life-saving medical treatment would go away. And those are the things that we need people to think about when we think about the services that CATS provides. Public transportation is significantly cheaper than rideshare like Uber and Lyft, where our service is $1.75 per trip, and they start out at around $6.50 to $7 at, just for a starting trip. So it's reliable, it's efficient, it's effective and inexpensive for people who really truly need the service to get to work, to get to businesses, to get to medical treatments, to get to school. We're looking to partner with East Baton Rouge schools right now, where they're having an issue with transportation, and so looking to partner with them to have the routes that are our schools that are on our routes for middle schools and high schools to do a pilot program with them coming up to allow the students to catch the public transportation system to alleviate some of their need with their bus system, expanding our partnership with BREC and designing routes that get people directly to those parks and playgrounds, so we can utilize those systems and services that we have that are available to the public. Inside of CATS, we have a program called CATS Cares, and it's our internal, external initiatives with wellness, with community engagement, but also helping our employees be whole. Very interested in investing in their personal and professional growth. So we've partnered with BRCC, where we have a number of certification programs that our employees can take advantage of. As a public agency, we're not allowed to do tuition reimbursement, but we can do certification programs. And so BRCC has been very creative with us to allow those certifications to mirror the curriculums of some of their courses, so that we can then transfer those to credit hours and help people ease back into completing a degree, and with the hope that they can go on to achieve their associate's degree and move on to a 4-year degree if they so choose. So we're doing a lot of great things at CATS. We're looking forward to continuing to serve East Baton Rouge and even expand, looking to get past this millage and then expand our services beyond the city of Baker, the city of Baton Rouge, and just really truly be a regional transit authority that the legislature designed CATS to be.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. We appreciate you coming and talking about that for us. We will now transition to the city court candidate meet and greet. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to give their greetings. Attorney Greene, would you please begin?
Well, hello, everybody. Thank y'all for having me. Sorry, I had a little bit of technical difficulties. I didn't get the Zoom link. I'm assuming it went to my spam folder, but that was an interesting take. I've been wondering about those constitutional amendments, so I was glad to have all that recap and the CATS tax. But my name is Whitney Higginbotham Greene, and I'm running for city court judge. There's 3 of us in the race. I see that 2 of us are on this call or this Zoom conference, and I've run for this before. I identified a long time ago that this was a job that dovetailed nicely with my skill set. I love people. I'm very patient with people. I like to hear their story. I like to craft solutions that are win-win. Not everybody's the same. If they were, we wouldn't need human judges. And I feel like I have a lot to offer. I've raised my family here. I've gone to school. I graduated, actually went to work right after college, then started having kids, stayed home with them, and then I went back to work later. So I feel like I've kind of been all over the place. I've seen a lot of different situations. I've worn a lot of different hats. And because city court is not one of those places that obviously the law is very important, but I think how you treat people, how you feel about people, how willing you are to work with people and apply the law, follow the rules, but lend grace is what I think is the most important. And so I'm going to stick around. I'll answer any questions you have, but that's all I have as far as by way of introduction.
Okay. Thank you, Attorney Greene. Appreciate it. Attorney Kent.
Good evening. Good evening to the women of Delta Sigma Theta. Thank you for hosting this forum. I think it is very important. Many thanks to the Social Action Committee for inviting all of the candidates to speak to you all and give you some insight into our respective platforms. My name is Tyrell Kent. Please call me TK. I am a native of Baton Rouge. I am not a member of Delta Sigma Theta, but I am a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha and have been for 16 years. So I would just like to say thank you again for inviting us on here. I truly am on board with your social action and political involvement initiatives. I think we're all sisters in service. I am public school educated, graduated from McKinley Senior High School. I am a Southern University Jaguar ×2, including my Bachelor of Music, as well as my Juris Doctorate. I'm running because I believe Baton Rouge needs trustworthy and diligent public servants who are rooted in our community and who are very, very interested and diligent in making sure that we move the city of Baton Rouge forward. Because when Baton Rouge progresses forward, it positively impacts our entire metro area. I'm also offering 11 years of legal experience. Prior to deciding to run for city court judge, I've served as an assistant district attorney for roughly 6.5 years, where I prosecute major cases, including homicides and felony drug matters. Prior to that, I served as the staff attorney and law clerk to 3 different sections of courts in state district court. 2 of those sections were criminal sections and 1 was a civil section. I believe that we need to address some pressing issues, including the monetary bail system, judicial efficiency and economy on the civil side of things with lawsuits, because the longer a lawsuit lasts, the more it costs the litigants involved. And also issues regarding incarceration for nonviolent offenses such as traffic tickets and misdemeanors. Thank you very much. I am here, I'm an open book, and I look forward to any questions that you all have.
Thank you, Attorney Kent. Appreciate that as well. Now, Sora Merrick and I will move on to the question portion for the city court candidates. Sora Merrick. Oh, I think you're on mute.
Okay, my apologies for that 30-second delay there. Thank you again to both of our city court judge candidates who are joining us today. The very first question that we have for you is, I think you all are aware that now more than ever, public misinformation is at an all-time high. Do you believe that judges have an obligation to improve public understanding of the courts? And if so, how should they carry out that obligation? And we'll start with you first, Attorney Greene.
Okay, can y'all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. The public disinformation is a huge problem. And I know that everybody on this call probably feels the same way. depending on your age, maybe you used to could watch like Walter Cronkite and you knew that you were listening to a trustworthy source. And I've struggled to identify who our Walter Cronkite is today. And I don't know that we have one. And so what it means is that we all have an obligation to find information and process information. And it's so busy and everything else that, I mean, I feel like everybody's frustrated about what to believe and what not to believe. Do I think the court has an obligation to further real information, not, and squelch the disinformation? Yes, and I'm not exactly sure how they would do that. I mean, I think that these courts are busy. City court in particular, volume wise, is the busiest court in the state. I mean, it's a metropolitan area. They've got tons of tickets. When you add up each thing as a separate case, I don't know how, because it's such a huge thing to dispel disinformation. Now, one of the things I've always said is to be in public service, whether it's a judge or anything else, that you have to possess good character and that you should strive to make a difference, a positive difference in your community every single day. So knowing that that's kind of one of the things that I say to myself every morning, then yes, as a judge, I would think that you do whatever you can. What that may be, I don't know exactly, but maybe just being transparent and open and everything you can. But your first obligation is to be respectful for the people that come before you and decide what is fair, the best outcome. It's not the same for every single person, but anything that I could do that lived within the judicial canons to help dispel that information, I would be more than willing to do, because I think all of us are ready to have a reliable source to learn stuff again.
Thank you. Attorney Kent?
I absolutely believe that sitting judges have an obligation to give objective information to the general public. Some of our judges currently do that. And I think it's a good thing, because people who come before the court, both laypersons and attorneys alike, appreciate it. One thing we could strive to do would be to include some of the objective information and procedure regarding the law on the court's website. A lot of people will go to the city court website for general information. Some judges, I know for a fact, in state district court will post bulletins in the vestibule or the entryway to the courtroom. And that information ranges from how to register to vote, where to go to pay fines, resources to help mitigate your case. In some civil sections, resources for legal services to help people who can't afford private counsel or retained counsel. One thing we can also do is utilize social media. A lot of people get their information from Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, all of those various platforms. But things that are pertinent information, such as when the court's open, how to register to vote, who to see to file certain documents, where you can go for legal assistance, where you can go for certain social and civic benefits and assistance. I think it's very important that not just sitting judges, but all public servants and public agencies with buildings have this information readily available for people.
Thank you. We're getting some questions in the chat as well.
Yes. I was yes. So one of the questions I see, have either of you practiced in city court? We'll let Attorney King go first this time.
So I have not directly litigated anything in city court. I have, as a law clerk, been tasked by a judge to get records from city court. And as an assistant DA, I've had companion cases that may start in city court and end up in district court, and vice versa. So while I haven't actually presented anything to city court, I've actually been in contact with staff and the clerk of court in city court, as well as the parish attorney's office.
Okay, Attorney Greene.
Yes, I have. As a matter of fact, it's interesting because my background, my legal career, when I graduated from law school, I found out I passed the bar on a Friday afternoon, and I started at the Attorney General's office on that following Monday morning. And I've been there, I'm not there any longer, but I was there for almost 12 years. And so I did different stints around the building. I know a lot of you probably know this, but for those that don't, you know, the Attorney General's office has a criminal division, a civil division. They do gaming, lands and natural resources. It's just kind of a mixed bag. But I was a prosecutor for about 4.5 of those years. And we would go all over the state. And so sometimes it was in city courts, sometimes it was in district courts, obviously the appellate courts and the Supreme Court, whatever your case was, you had to stick with it and do it. So I did not originally have the occasion to go to city court a lot, but I ran for this seat back in 2015 and was not successful. I went back to work after my election and I said, I would love to spend more time there. This is a job that I want. I want to be familiar with that building and the process. And so I sort of became the city court prosecutor for a little while. Whenever there was a conflict, whether it was through the city attorney's office or parish attorney's office, or even if the DA had something over there, and they kicked it to the attorney general. So I loved it over there. I got to do all kinds of different stuff. There were some things, maybe some a fracas with a police officer that somebody got in trouble. There's DWIs, there's tickets, there's all kinds of different contested matters. So yes, I have practiced over there and thoroughly enjoy it. Part of the reason I want the job.
Thank you both for those answers. And I would say also at this point to remind everyone, if you do have questions, please go ahead and put them in the Q&A box or in the chat if you have access to that, and we will try to weave those questions in as we move through a conversation with our two judicial candidates. The next question for you all is, what will you do to address the issue of poverty when assessing fines and fees for litigants? And we'll go in reverse order. Attorney Greene.
Okay, great. I will tell you, I'm a very strong believer in parity along with the fairness. And I've always said that, you know, if you give somebody a fine, it doesn't mean the same thing to every person. Person A might say, oh, no big problem. It's not even a deterrent for them. Again, if it was easy for them to pay, then again, it might affect someone else's children being able to eat that week or that month or something else, their child having diapers. So obviously every situation is different. There's lots of things of value that if someone is found guilty and you decide that there is some sort of sentence or punishment or fine or whatever, to take that person's situation into consideration. Now, one of the things I've gotten passionate about, I've always been a huge community volunteer, is just picking up litter in the city. I mean, it's amazing. You know, I don't know if it's post-COVID with the homeless population and stuff like that, and trying to get people just, you know, back to where they need to be. I know the Bridge Center has been a big thing where we have needed it so desperately. But just being out there, I mean, I can clean up a street with a group. I mean, I'm never by myself. I'm just a small part of these huge groups that do this. And you can go one weekend and do it and come back the next weekend and it looks like you were never there. So it's an ongoing issue. That's just one of many, many different, I guess, tools in the arsenal. But there's so many things that we need to improve Baton Rouge, that if there's a better way to do it and there's a better way to deal with somebody, money is not a universal way to deal with the outcomes in city court. So yes, I think there's plenty of other ways to do it.
So Attorney Kent, that same question as it relates to issues of poverty when assessing fines and fees for litigants.
So one thing to keep in mind when assessing fees and fines, some things are static or they can't be changed, such as court costs. So one thing you can do to, in lieu of court costs, you can offer the opportunity to complete community service. A lot of judges do that. I think it's a great idea. As Attorney Greene stated, picking up litter is one alternative. There are many other alternatives that people can also use, such as reading to kids, depending on the charge, of course. Also, attending some of the civic programs that we have. Some people never go to council meetings, and I think people should start to pay attention to what goes on. You can also volunteer at various community centers as well. And I also think some people simply just need time. Instead of jumping to conclusions and assume that a person is unwilling to pay, ask them for a moment to assess their situation and determine if they need a payment plan. A lot of people come to court and they just ask, hey, can I get a little time? Or in their language, they will say, can you put me on a payment plan? Can I put a little something on it today? And that can be done for the compulsory court fees. Now for fines, a lot of times the statute says 0 to 500 or 0 to 1,000 for these misdemeanors. So I think it's imperative as a sitting judge that, the person on the bench can say, look, this is a disturbing the peace. And at this point, do we really want to tax our citizens and put them in a deeper hole than they may already be in, or set them up for failure? So I think judges have to be empathetic and assess the situation, because everyone is different. And I think we also have to be somewhat patient with people and give people time to take care of their obligations. And that's on the criminal side. We tend to forget on the civil side that sometimes they're filing fees. And unfortunately, some of those filing fees can't be waived unless they find some sort of way to pay for or get the fees waived through some sort of indigent program or pro bono program. Or if they are what we call like a pauper. And I hate the term pauper because it's so medieval. We don't want to label people as a pauper, but that's the legal term we still use. But there are alternatives that we can do to avoid having people held in contempt and incarcerating them over money, because the last thing we want to do is have a debtor's prison in our society.
Thank you, Attorney Kent. And the last question for our city court candidates: what has been your greatest accomplishment in your legal career and your personal life? And we'll begin with Attorney Kent.
That's a loaded question. My greatest accomplishment in my personal life, which to me is the bare minimum for any lawyer, was passing the bar. I took the bar one time. And it was, and for the attorneys on the line, and for anyone who's ever written a thesis or what have you in grad school, once you get to the finish line and the moment, the Supreme Court justice swears you in, you feel like that is the pinnacle of your personal accomplishments. In terms of professional accomplishments, it never stops. It's called the practice of law for a reason. Every day when I wake up, I look at myself in the mirror and I say, you're here to serve the community and to seek justice and make sure that you're on the right side of justice and that you're not taking part in continuing an oppressive system. And so my biggest accomplishment, it actually occurred one day, and I'll tell you, it was my very first domestic abuse battery case. It was a trial I had in the fall of 2012. And I lost that trial, but I didn't look at it as a loss, because after trial, the victim and the victim's family said, thank you. Thank you for being, on the soapbox for us and being an advocate for victims' rights. And so that, to me, it's always an accomplishment when, regardless of the outcome of a case, and Lord knows I have hundreds of them, when witnesses and victims, or when law enforcement witnesses, and even when opposing counsel, when they say, thank you for being the professional we expect people to be and doing the best you possibly can.
Thank you, Attorney Kent. Attorney Greene.
Okay, well, I completely agree with what Attorney Kent just said, as far as like, you don't really want to rest on your laurels. I loved trying cases. I did a lot of that before I became a prosecutor. I did try cases there, but I'm talking about civil cases, like picking the jury long, going through all these records, discovery, different things like that. But you're only, it's like your greatest accomplishment until your next one. And so I agree that you just keep on going and you just never know what it's going to be. But I will tell you a quick little funny story. At the AG's office, all the attorneys there, we have like a duty day, and it switches. You know what yours is. You don't have to wait by the phone, but if the phone rings, that's your thing today. You can't really always give legal advice, especially because the AG's office represents the state. but and you can find yourself conflicted out, but we try to point people in the right direction. And I had a lady call one day and she was very upset. She was desperate for some help. She was getting kicked out of her apartment. It was actually a lady in Lake Charles. And there was a program under President Obama where she could move to a different place and everything else. And we just needed to run down some information between the housing authority and some different things. But I stuck with her. She was my person that day. And a few months later, my assistant came in and she said, "Hey, I have a call on the line for you." And I said, "Well, okay, who is it?" And she told me, and I said, I don't know who that is. And she goes, "Oh, she's a nurse in Lake Charles." And I said, "Okay, well, put her through. Let me talk to her." And so she asked me, she said, "Do you know this person?" And it was the name of the lady that called me months prior. I'm weird about remembering stuff like that. And I knew. And she said, "Oh, we have her here. She had a tough day. We picked her up. She doesn't really know where she is. She's lost and everything else. We have her here at the hospital. And she has told us that you are her next of kin." I had to tell the nurse, I was like, I've never met this lady. I've talked to her on the phone before, but I've never met her. And she says that you were the nicest person ever to her, that she's never had anybody help her like this, and that you are her next of kin. Well, of course, we had to work through the whole thing and explain that I really wasn't. But, I hung up that phone, and as crazy as that was, I felt like, okay, we make a difference. Lawyers make a difference. We get a bad name, but we make a difference when we try. So that's that. And then the personal accomplishment, I love and I don't love this question because it's a cliche answer to say that my children are my best personal accomplishment. But the simple fact is they are. She is my daughter, my boys, my twins, they are. I hate to say that, but it's one of those things that all the mamas out there will understand that it's a tough job, but it's the most rewarding job that you can have as well. And to watch them turn into good adults and know that they listened to you, that you gave them good advice, even when they didn't listen to you and they learned from a bad experience. It's the best teacher anyway. That's definitely my proudest personal accomplishment.
That's
Thank
awesome.
you.
That's awesome. I would, before we transition to our family court judges, I would ask that attorneys Greene and Kent, if you wouldn't mind just dropping into our chat box your website and where those who are participating and watching this evening can follow up and learn more about you and your respective platforms, and even be in touch with you going forward, since we are just under about 2 weeks, maybe a little over 2 weeks away from the election day. And I will add that early voting starts next week. So we want to get going with that as well. Okay, we are going to transition now to our family court candidates, those who are running for family court. It is family court Section 1, Division B, to be specific. And joining us tonight are Councilwoman and attorney Erica Greene and attorney Natalie Telus Robertson. Good evening, ladies, and thank you for being with us and our audience this evening to share with us your platform as you are seeking this role in family court. So Councilwoman Greene, we'll start with you first. If you would give us about a 2-minute introduction of yourself.
Good afternoon. Ms. Kent took my thing I've been saying every time I get to meet with the Divine Nine, which is thank you to my sisters in service, because we all know the heart and the work that it takes to push issues in the community. And so thank you guys for having me. And it's full circle for me, because the day I became a Delta is the day I found my bar results and I became a licensed attorney. And so when you think about what 10 and a half years of impact looks like, I've done a lot with both my law degree as well as working for the organization. And so I'm a girl from North Baton Rouge that is public school educated, went to Prairie View A&M and Southern University Law Center. The day I left Southern, I opened my own practice and put my shingle out. I felt prepared to do so because at that time, I had interned for Orleans Public Defender's Office and East Baton Rouge Parish Defender's Office. I felt prepared because I've worked as a law clerk and an intern for Judge Ivan LaMelle in federal court, New Orleans. And then again, full circle, I've been able to be a adjunct professor at Southern University Law Center, teaching research and legal writing to many of our students. I felt prepared to open my own practice because I had great mentors that invested in me and helped me become who I am today. I've been practicing for 10 and a half years, civil litigation, family law, estate law, and that's something that I've been doing with my clients that come in the door. I've also been a contract attorney with Southeast Legal Services for a number of years, doing abuse cases, which is important in family court and preparation because it deals with abuse. And we have a large domestic violence docket. We also deal with emergency cases, ex parte hearings in family court as well. I've also had a contract with Department of Children and Family Services as a foster care provider. I do adoptions for foster care families. And we know that in the Black community, third parties are very essential in raising children and building our family structure, because the nuclear family sometimes is change. All these things have prepared me to run for the position of family court judge. I believe that experience in itself has helped me to be efficient, to be focused, and most importantly, to be compassionate. I end by saying, you know me as a community leader. I've been in public service for 6 years as a council person. I've been in leadership capacity in many organizations, but my heart has stayed with practicing law consistently for that whole time period. My heart has stayed with helping people. So when I spoke about my public interest work at the beginning, it's something that I love doing, but both agencies and individual clients has trusted me to represent them. And I think that this helps me to the next phase of my life, which is being a family court judge. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Greene. And I just got to ask you before we move to Attorney Natalie Telus Robertson, who were you cheering for Saturday? I want to be on record.
I wasn't going to linger on it, but both schools, but I'm grateful that Prairie View A&M won.
I couldn't leave my employer out. They would expect me to make sure we understood very clearly that Southern rules down here. Very good. Attorney Natalie Telus Robertson, welcome again, and your introduction, ma'am.
Well, good evening. I'm Natalie Telus Robertson, and I'm an attorney here in Baton Rouge. I am a family law attorney, and I feel like I can't tell my story without starting with my grandparents who taught at Southern University. They came here in 1944 to teach at Southern University, and my dad grew up part of his childhood on Southern University's campus. And so I feel like I come from good stock. I had very hardworking grandparents and parents, and they modeled hard work for me. And in turn, I went to Howard University and earned my bachelor's degree in English with a minor in journalism. And then I went on to move to Baton Rouge, where my parents had already returned. I was a military brat, so I spent 21 years in Washington, D.C., and then I went to Howard University, and then I returned here with my family in '94 to attend Southern University Law Center. I've been very fortunate to have some really fantastic experiences in my legal career. I started out clerking in Opelousas, Louisiana for Judge Alonzo Harris with the civil and criminal docket. And then in that time, I would come back and forth to Baton Rouge to campaign with Judge John Michael Guidry in his first bid for the First Circuit Court of Appeal. He was successful in that. And then he actually was the one who called me at Judge Alonzo Harris's office to tell me that I had passed the Louisiana State Bar, and then thereafter hired me to work as a law clerk in the First Circuit Court of Appeal. After my service in the First Circuit, I was recruited by Judge Laverne, and thus my career in family law began in about 1998. I believe that, God puts people in our paths for a certain reason. I thought I wanted to be an entertainment lawyer. I thought I wanted to move to Los Angeles and work on contracts, but I ended up working with Judge Laverne and loving family law. Judge Laverne made me an integral part of the decision-making team. As the research attorney, we were called law clerks at the time. They're now called research attorneys. And in that, I was the first African-American female to serve in that position. And I helped Judge Laverne edit the family court rules that everybody knows about today on familycourt.org, and created the docket review process that all the law clerks use now, whereby we review cases weekly for Rule Day. So after I worked with Judge Laverne, I went to New Orleans for 5 years to work with a family law firm with Miss Theon Wilson. She's a very aggressive and well sought after family law attorney. And after Katrina, I returned here and married and worked for Judge Laverne again in family court. And when he retired, began work with Judge Lisa Woodruff White. Both Judge Luke Laverne and Judge Lisa Woodruff White served as mentors for me. And I once again went out into the practice field, working as a partner with Antoine Law Firm in 2010, and have worked as the go-to person in family law in that capacity for the last 11 years. So that is my legal experience. Personally, I'm married to Dr. Corey Robertson, originally from New Orleans, former owner of Affordable Dentures here in Baton Rouge. And I have two beautiful daughters. I have a 21-year-old stepdaughter named Tate, who is finishing college at Dillard and is going to go on to medical school soon. And I have a 14-year-old in 9th grade, and her name is Ava Rose. In terms of my community service, I see a lot of familiar faces here. And so many of you know that I am a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. I am a member of the Lynx. I'm a member of Jack and Jill. And in those organizations, I have served in many different capacities, mostly with children, because children seem to be my forte, reading to children, working on a club called the Rosebuds to help young women develop self-esteem, etiquette, and other types of skills. I have an LLC called Affordable Divorces, whereby I consult with people who otherwise could not afford divorce services. And I do many other things. The last thing I want to mention would be the internships that I provide for students at SULC and McKinley who are interested in the legal field. So thank you so much. I hope I didn't take too much time, but thank you so much for having me this evening. And I look forward to answering your questions.
Gotta stop that. Thank you both. You both are amazing, amazing ladies, and so fortunate to know you both very well. And again, grateful that you are joining us and taking time to share with us this evening. We'll start our questions, and I will turn the first question over to my co-moderator, Casey.
Thank you. So the first question that we have is, do you believe that all citizens have adequate access to legal help and the legal system? If not, what can be done to provide wider and better access? Attorney Robertson.
So the short answer to that question is no. I do not believe that all people have access to justice. There are some strides that we are making in order to provide the access to justice. The Self-Help Center, which was created by Judge Lisa Woodruff White in the East Baton Rouge Parish Family Court, is one way in which people can, who could not otherwise afford family law services or family law legal services, can go and get information, get legal information. It's staffed by attorneys, and although they can't give advice, as I said, they can give out forms to sort of guide you along the way. There is also the Southeast Legal Services. I know the frustration with that particular agency is just the amount of people who need help and the red tape that one must go through in order to receive help. And so, in my estimation of how I could help to provide access or more access to justice in my realm, which is family law, I did create what I mentioned before is an LLC called Affordable Divorces. It doesn't just serve divorces, it serves people who also are in custody disputes, domestic violence disputes, community property disputes, but it essentially allows me to stay out of the courtroom, but still help by providing consulting services for those who otherwise would not be able to have assistance.
Thank you. Attorney Greene.
I totally agree that in family court, well, in general, in the judicial system, there is a lack of access to justice. There are hindrances to being able to get in the courtroom, and fines, court costs are those things that in family court, if you file a petition, you have to pay for it. And so many people have to utilize the free legal services through the self-help desk that Judge Woodruff White did start. Many people have to use pro bono services through Southeast Legal Services and Southern University Law Center and LSU Law Center, which is called clinical education programs. And so that is the easy way to get people into the court system. But many times people just need to be informed and educated. And so what I have done in my career is provided educational workshops through organizations. Individually, I have done pro bono services, and it is pro bono week this week. And many lawyers don't want to go into public interest work and do that, the job that's typically a cheaper option for lawyers. But in our community, we need to have lawyers that are being social engineers and making sure that we educate our community. I heard a quote, "You're the only Bible some people may ever read." Well, it's the same thing here in the practice of law. Some people can never afford to have attorneys. So we have to have pauper services. We have to have legal options, free legal options for individuals. And so I think with all those things combined, people will have the opportunity to have a connection and to have their voices heard in court. But in family court, it's just a little different. We utilize a lot of our self-help desks and the forms that are available on our family court website.
Thank you. Thank you for those answers. Next question, and we'll start with you, Attorney Greene. Currently and unfortunately, Baton Rouge has been identified as one of the top cities which sees a high number of domestic violence related crimes. How will you ensure that all victims of violence receive the protection and services that they need?
The domestic violence caseload that comes before each judge is very heavy. The numbers in the news show you that. But as a judge, my job is to make sure that the litigants have access to IRIS, which is our domestic violence office, and provided attorneys to represent them if they need it. Domestic violence is a result of larger issues. And in family court, we need to make sure that we have wraparound services and access to our child advocacy centers, because it impacts more than just the parents. If someone is involved in domestic violence, it impacts the children. And we have to make sure and my role as a judge is to make sure that the children are protected and even the parents are protected, whether it's the wife or the husband. And because of that, what I believe is important in domestic violence cases is making sure the story is heard, making sure that it is not a false allegation, because in EBR, we do have a lot of people that use the vehicle of a domestic violence case to remove someone from the home, to use it to assert custody. And so that's not the vehicle. If it's not properly used, we need to assess fines for that. But if it is a very an emergency case, if there's harm, irreparable harm that will come from the case, we need to make sure that we're protecting the individual. And I believe that the family court system has done well with doing that. We still need, obviously, to speed up the process, because you can file a temporary restraining order today and it not be heard in 2 weeks. And we all know that 2 weeks in the life of a domestic violence victim is a very scary 2 weeks. And so I think what we can do and what I would love to do is to speed up that process. But again, the dockets are so large that that's hard to do. But making sure that we impact and effectively help both the child or the children in that family, as well as get the mother or the husband that is impacted some services.
Thank you. And Attorney Robertson?
Yes, so I agree that that the IRIS program in East Baton Rouge Parish, which is unique to East Baton Rouge Parish and some surrounding parishes, in terms of assisting men and women who are impacted by domestic violence. It provides an opportunity for people who need domestic violence assistance to talk to people in the IRIS program about how to fill out the forms, you know how to word what has happened to them in such a way that it is clear to the judge and that they fear harm or great bodily harm or death. And so that's just a fantastic resource that we have. And what I would say is that we have to come together as a legal community to find ways in which to fund the IRIS program and the Battered Women's program more fully, so that those services can continue and evolve for people. Because as Attorney Greene suggested, our domestic violence docket is robust. And it is a challenge. I've worked behind the scenes with both Judge Laverne and Judge Woodruff White in trying to assess whether or not to grant temporary restraining orders, because there are a good number of people who will file petitions for protection from domestic abuse, who are doing so to sort of circumvent the process of going through a custody dispute, or are trying to obtain community property without having to file for a divorce. And so, it's a tough job to try to section out, who is using or abusing this process versus, the people who are really, really, truly in need. And so there is a committee or an institute called the Louisiana Law Institute that brings judges and attorneys together to try to find solutions for certain problems that we see in the court in practicing everyday practical solutions to everyday problems. And so I would also suggest that the domestic violence challenges that we face every Wednesday in domestic violence court, in family court, that the judges and the attorneys get together in the Louisiana Law Institute and try to propose solutions and introduce legislation that will decrease the amount of cases that come before us in providing programs for people and resources for men and women who are fleeing domestic violence situations.
Thank you for those answers. We have an attendee in the chat who wanted the candidates to explain the role of judges in custody disputes. And we'll add to that and ask, what will you do as judge to ensure that bias does not seep into its way into the courtroom? Attorney Robertson.
So one of the biggest issues that I grapple with as a family law attorney is the issue of custody. And what people don't realize is that family court is a court that deals with divorce, custody, child support, and domestic violence. And we're sort of unique in that way in East Baton Rouge Parish, because there are some jurisdictions that where their juvenile courts deal with situations with children, relative to children, child in need of care, and child neglect cases. But on family court, we're mostly dealing with two parents who are either married or not married, who have a dispute over where the child that they had together is going to live and how that child is going to be raised. And so the role of the judge in custody disputes is to look at the best interest factors that we have codified in Louisiana law, and to look at what would be in the best interest of this particular child in terms of which parent would be better to facilitate food, shelter, and clothing, spiritual guidance, educational guidance, and which parent would be most willing to facilitate a relationship with the other parent. And so I just want people to understand that in family court, we're starting with a divorce, or we're starting with two parents who have a dispute over custody, who can't live together and need to learn how to co-parent living apart. And so the role of the judge is to aid the attorneys in finding resources for those parents. We have Parenting Together While Living Apart through the Family Services of Greater Baton Rouge, and other resources, mental health resources to help families, because a lot of stress comes from custody disputes when parents can't agree where the children are primarily going to live or how they're going to be raised. And so it's the role of the judge to point the legal professionals and the parties in the direction of the resources that are needed in order to make sure that that we choose to put the child primarily with the parent who can facilitate the needs of the child, as I explained in the best interest factors, and how we can have the parents learn to co-parent together. And there are many more things that I could say, but I'll stop there. I don't want to take up too much time.
Thank you. Attorney Greene.
So you did like a two-part question, and you started with the biases of family court. Many people walk in family court with a notion that it's going to be one-sided. It's going to be for the women or it's going to be for the men. But the reality is, as a judge, we are supposed to look past socioeconomic status. We're supposed to look past the race. We're supposed to look past all those issues to determine what's best for the child. And in custody cases, they come case by case basis. It may be a situation where one parent has the financial needs or the financial ability to sustain the family, but one parent has the ability to rear and educate and effectively assist with educating the child or the children. Every child has different needs. One may be a child that needs to be in parochial school. One may need to be in a charter school, and school choice becomes an issue. So the role of the judge is not to lawyer the case. It is to hear the facts that are being presented, to be the trier of fact, and to hear all the facts and the evidence that's presented and make a ruling. And most of the times you're not getting that the first time you come to court. It takes time in family court because it's so specialized and so sensitive, such a sensitive nature and issues before the court. And so many times the judge needs to offer mediation to families before we get to the trial. Many times the judge needs to offer status conferences and multiple resources before we make a permanent decision. We do interim decisions that help the family structure stay together. We may do different custodial arrangements for the family. And the judge gives those recommendations, but after listening to the needs of that family. There are the codified best interest factors that are paramount in listening. But then there are cases that come with third parties that are having custody disputes where the parent is no longer involved. And so you have to take all those things in consideration as a judge, especially in family court. And again, it's no win or lose in family court, because that child will be affected whether they're with their mother or whether with their father, or whether they're being raised by the grandparent. So the role is to make sure that we have a steady plan that the parents have actually been a part of, because you want to make sure that the family has input on it. And hopefully the only time the judge is coming in is if we're at a trial or if we have an interim decision that needs to be made based on the law. So I believe that's the role of the judge.
Thank you. Thank you both for those answers. I want to transition. I mean, you heard us ask this question in the earlier segment of our program this evening. And so we're going to ask it of you both as well. And that is, what has been your greatest accomplishment in your legal career and again, in your personal life? So Attorney Greene, we'll start with you.
In my personal life, I was given an award at the time I graduated from college called the Humanitarian Award. And many times when you're in organizations and really involved in the community, you feel like no one's noticing because you're doing it from your heart. And so when I was able, that's the highest award that they gave a student, and I was able to receive that in 2007. But the actual one that is personal and professional is that the past 3 years, I was able to employ my mother as my office manager and secretary at my law office. And it's a proud moment in my family because my mother wanted to be a lawyer and got married and started a family. And so to be able to work side by side with her and for her to understand my practice and to be able to give back to my practice, and for me to honor her with all the sacrifices that she has made to get me to this point, that was the best thing I could ever do. And so it was hard when she told me she was going to retire a month and a half ago, but that was definitely an opportunity for me to break some generational issues and to definitely grant my family the wealth and the ability to show our family connection while working. And the truth is, many of my clients love to talk to my mother because she was that motherly figure that would listen to them. And then I would come with the law, and this is exactly what's going to happen, and be compassionate with them. But to this day, people still ask about my mom. So that's one of my biggest accomplishments.
Awesome. Attorney Robertson.
Okay, so I would have to say my biggest professional accomplishment is sort of a collection of custody cases that I worked on. I became known in my office as the go-to person for emergency custody situations, which are essentially tough custody situations. And you have to do them, you have to get the information and draft the pleadings all in one day and notify the court, get to the court, and and try to secure temporary custody for the parent that's requesting it, because they fear that if the child remains in the custody of the other parent, that they will, it'll be to their detriment. And so, my greatest triumphs in my professional career have been those times where the children were really in danger, and I was able to secure a temporary custody order for the concerned parents, and to be able, just to bring the children to safety. In my personal life, of course, I would have to say it would be raising my family, co-parenting with my husband. Not necessarily an ideal situation, because I was a young, single, professional young lady when I met my husband, and he had already been married and he had a young child. And so, we made the decision to be able to marry and co-parent, his daughter together with his ex-wife, and then eventually my stepdaughter's stepfather. And so if anyone who follows my social media knows that I might be a little bit obsessed with my children, I pour into them. I love to expose them culturally and spiritually and academically. And just every day that I get up, they are my light. And I'm very proud of the fact that that my husband describes me as the glue in our family, because I welcomed my stepdaughter as if she were my own child. I love her as if she is my own child. Everybody who knows me knows and understands that. And that do believe has helped me as a family law practitioner in seeing the perspectives of people who are trying to parent together while living apart, or are trying to navigate the world of blended families. So that would be my greatest personal accomplishment.
Thank you for answering our questions. We will now move to 1 minute closing for each candidate, and we'll transition back to City Court very quickly. Attorney Kent, if you don't mind going and closing it. Attorney Kent, I'm not sure if you're speaking, but we can't hear you.
I'm sorry, I was muted. Once again, thank you, ladies, for hosting this forum. I really do appreciate this. I think making sure we foster civic and social engagement in the current issues is very, very, very important to everyone in the community. I would implore you all to continue to do the great work and the Lord's work that you all are doing. And if you live south of Florida Boulevard in the city limits, I would absolutely love to have your vote. I am number 7 on your ballot. And thank you. I will not, labor this any longer.
Thank you. Attorney Greene, your closing remarks, please.
Thank y'all for having me. And I have to say, it's so confusing to me because having Attorney Erica Greene in the same election, every time y'all say Attorney Greene, I think that like I'm in class and somehow or another I'm wait, it's not my turn. Anyway, I really do appreciate the invitation. We have kind of been on a little forum streak this week. I think this might have been the 6th one that all of these candidates have done in the last 2 weeks. And I just appreciate the opportunity, because I think it takes showing up, telling people what you're all about, putting them at ease, letting them get to know you, telling them how to find you, telling them what you're about. And without these opportunities, we don't get to do that. So thank you for having me. I think we've covered everything tonight, but obviously I'd love to talk to people. I've included my contact information. And so if anybody has further questions or anything like that, don't hesitate to contact me. Thanks again.
Thank you. And our 1 minute closing from our family court judges, judge candidates, that is. We'll start with you, ending with Attorney Greene and starting with Attorney Greene.
Thank you to the best organization that I know of. You guys always find a way to impact the community. But as women, it's even better, because when you educate a woman, you change the world, right? If you elect a judge, I'm making this up, you could probably change the world too. I just stopped to acknowledge our star, Judge Lisa Woodruff White, for her service and her 12 years of service as a family court judge, the only minority judge on the family court bench, and to have the opportunity to come after her is nothing but a legacy. And I've had a great opportunity to work with her over the years. I say that this is an experience running for office, but more importantly, it's where my heart is, to be a public servant and to continue to practice law and to ultimately be a judge. I end by saying this district is larger than you think. It starts in South Baton Rouge and goes through Spanish Town and goes all the way through North Baton Rouge to Scotlandville and to Baker. So if you stay in those areas, you are charged to go to the polls to vote. I ask that you consider the compassionate and experienced candidate with diverse legal experience and a heart for the community, and that is me. I'm Erica Greene, number 3 on your ballot. Thank you again.
Thank you, Attorney Greene. Attorney Robertson.
So it's been a wonderful evening, ladies. Thank you for hosting. This has been an amazing forum. I'm very impressed and very glad to be a part of this forum with 4 really impressive women. I, again, just want to reiterate that family law is my passion, that I have worked in the family law court for over 20 years, both behind the scenes and as a practitioner. I'm known in my firm as the go-to person for family law, and I'm here and ready to take on tough custody cases as a practitioner and hopefully very soon as a judge. I got into this race because I wanted there to be a fair and impartial person ruling from the bench. Much like Ms. Greene, I admire Judge Lisa Woodruff White. She is a mentor of mine, a close friend, has guided me through this journey, which has been an amazing journey. I'm mostly a private person. I sort of move in silence. I do a lot of my community service quietly. I don't, I'm not on Facebook mostly doing my community service. I think I mostly publicize my kids on Facebook and not so much my community service, but I've had the opportunity to be able to sort of showcase that in running for judge. It's been an amazing journey meeting the people. I'm very focused on the citizens. I have knocked on, I think, probably hundreds of doors, spoken to hundreds of citizens who have voiced confidence in my abilities as a professional, and because of my personal experience as a mom, a parent, a co-parent, a woman working with a blended family, and making sure that everybody at the end of the day feels like they're heard and they have a voice, and that we can be as happy and as blessed as possible. So again, I thank you for I think what is going to be my last candidates forum on this journey. It's been a blessed experience, and I ask for your vote on November the 13th. Early voting begins October 30th through November the 6th, and I am Natalie Telus Robertson, number 4 on your ballot.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us this evening. Our 4 candidates, we do appreciate you for sharing your time and your talent with us, and your insight into the roles that you are seeking for this electoral cycle that is coming up very soon for us. And now we will turn it over to our president of the Baton Rouge Sigma Alumni Chapter, Shai Joseph Franklin, to speak on behalf of all of our hosts this evening. Madam President.
Good evening, everyone, again. In Delta Sigma Theta, your hosting chapter, we are known for social action, and social action is what we do. And social action is what we've brought to you this evening. Thank you so much for joining us. But know that in our organization, we have come together under 4 different chapters in our local community. The Alpha Tau chapter of Southern University, Delta Sigma Theta. We've also come with Baton Rouge Delta. We've come with Baton Rouge Sigma, and we've also come with Baker Zachary. These 4 chapters have come together with leaders such as Sheila Lewis, Judy Bethley, Tracy Woods, Heather Jefferson, Denise Lee, Kimberly Lamott, Perlene Thomas, and Tanya Johnson. These leaders, among all 4 of these chapters, have put together this particular program in which you've been a part of this evening. We want to thank Dr. Samuels for bringing forth the information related to the amendments. We hope that you heard the information about the CATS proposal. Know that none of the amendments or the proposals or any of the candidates we endorse. We bring this information to you to make sure that you are informed and can go out and make a very important decision that is coming up. Now, be aware that this coming Saturday begins the early voting from October 30th until November 6th. You can go out and cast your votes early. And you may want to do so because Election Day is on November 13th. And some of you may not want to have that day interrupted, as LSU will be playing Arkansas and Southern University will be playing Jackson State. So make sure you go out early and cast your votes. And if not, before you go to the games, if you do plan to participate, go and cast your vote and take someone with you. Now, after November 13th and your vote is cast, we want to redirect your attention to November 16th. If you remember, the census was done during the pandemic. Now that the census is over, it is time for redistricting. And our viewers, we want you to make sure that you're paying attention to the redistricting that is going on in your respective communities. For us locally, if you are in town and if you are not and you're close by, Southern University will be hosting one of the redistricting roadshows on November 16th at 5:30, again at the Southern University Ballroom. Please mark your calendars. Make sure that you're there so that you can get the information and be informed. Now, as I close out the evening, I want to make sure that I recognize the presidents of the organizations that bringing forth this particular evening. Baton Rouge Delta is represented by Tisha McKinney. Baker Zachary is represented by, I'm sorry, I forgot her name. Baker Zachary, I'll come back to her name. Alpha Tau is represented by Leela Murdoch, and Baker Zachary is, forgive me, it has escaped my mind. So with that, I want to say I am Shy Joseph Franklin of Baton Rouge Sigma, and I want to make sure that you all are aware. The vote is precious. It's the most powerful nonviolent tool that we have in our democratic society, and we must use it. Those are the words of our John Lewis. Make sure you use your powerful tool and have your vote heard. Thank you. Have a good evening.